Part 1. The station hung in the cold dark like a forgotten tool. It orbited Varel 9, a dull moon circling a gas giant no one cared about. Dust coated the windows. Wires dangled from broken panels. Most of the crew had left months ago when funding dried up. Only a few stubborn souls remained, chasing old rumors of buried tech from the first expansion era. Kyle Dobbs was one of them. He wasn't a soldier or a pilot. He was a linguist, barely 30, with messy brown hair and eyes that lit up when he found a new symbol or a lost word. He didn't care about credits or fame. He just wanted to understand what came before. His small lab was cluttered with data slates, broken comms units, and shelves of dusty artifacts pulled from Varel 9's dry canyons. That morning, he brushed sand off a palm-sized crystal he'd dug up 2 days earlier. It looked like black glass, but when light hit it just right, faint lines glowed inside like veins of silver. He'd run every scan he could. Nothing matched. No known language. No Concord database had a record of it. But something about the pattern tugged at him. It felt familiar, like a half-remembered dream. He sat at his terminal, fingers flying over the keys. He fed the crystal's light patterns into his translation matrix, cross-referencing ancient Earth scripts, pre-Concord trade codes, even old nursery rhymes from colony worlds. Hours passed. The station creaked around him. Outside, the gas giant loomed, its storm swirling in slow motion. Then a match. Not perfect, but close. A harmonic resonance sequence from a lost human colony called Eos Prime. The sequence wasn't words, it was music. A series of tones that, when played in order, opened old-style quantum gates. Gates that hadn't worked in centuries. Kyle's heart pounded. He knew the Concord banned gate research, especially anything tied to Sol system. Earth was off limits. Always had been. The official story was that Earth died in a war so terrible it broke reality itself. The Concord sealed it off, called it the Silence, and told everyone to forget it ever existed. But Kyle had read the forbidden archives. He knew the truth was messier, darker, and far more interesting. He looked at the crystal again. What if this wasn't just a key? What if it was a message? He walked down 3 corridors to the old gate chamber. It hadn't been used in 200 years. The ring stood silent in the center of the room, covered in rust and cobwebs. Power was still connected, barely. He wiped dust off the control panel. His hand shook as he plugged in the crystal. It slotted in with a soft click. A low hum filled the room. Lights flickered on along the ring's edge. Dust fell from the ceiling. Kyle stepped back, breath held. The gate didn't roar or flash. It simply opened. A circle of calm darkness appeared in the center of the ring, like a hole punched through space. Then slowly stars formed inside it. Not the stars of this sector, but a familiar cluster. One bright blue dot hung near the center. Earth. Kyle stared. He couldn't move. He'd seen images of Earth in secret files, oceans, green land, white clouds. But this was real. This was now. The gate held steady, humming like a sleeping animal. He reached out. His fingers stopped just short of the surface. It felt warm, alive, then alarms blared. Red lights spun. The station's AI voice, calm but urgent, announced, "Unauthorized gate activation detected. Concord Security Protocol Alpha engaged." Kyle jerked his hand back. Footsteps pounded in the hallway. He turned just as 2 peacekeepers burst in, stun batons raised. Their armor bore the silver crest of the Galactic Concord. "Don't move," one said, voice flat behind his helmet. Kyle raised his hands. "I didn't mean to—" "Silence," the other snapped. "You activated a Sol-class gate. That's a Class 9 violation. You're under arrest." They cuffed him with magnetic restraints. As they dragged him out, he looked back at the gate. The blue dot still shone inside it, calm and distant. He whispered, "I just wanted to see if anyone was still there." The words were soft, but the station's audio logs caught them. Within minutes, they were broadcast across every newsfeed in the Concord. By the time Kyle reached the detention bay, his name was already trending. Not as a scholar, not as a linguist, but as the man who opened the gate to Earth high above, in the orbiting command vessel, Aurora's Edge. Admiral Lena Ruiz watched the live feed from Varel 9. Her face was sharp, her dark eyes unreadable. She'd spent 20 years enforcing the Sol quarantine. She knew what lived on the other side of that gate, or what was left of it, and she knew the Concord's oldest rule, never look back, but someone just did. She tapped her comm. Alert the High Council. Tell them the silence is over. Down in the detention cell, Kyle sat on a thin cot staring at the wall. He didn't regret it. Not really. He'd spent his life chasing echoes. Now he'd heard a voice. And somewhere across the void something had heard him too. The gate remained open. No one knew how to close it. No one dared go through. But they all watched it, waiting, wondering. Because Earth wasn't supposed to answer, and yet deep in the ruins of a dead world something stirred. Not with anger, not with hunger, but with recognition. The tally of the dead had been paused for centuries. Now it would begin again. Part 2. The news spread faster than light. Not through ships or signals, but through the fear that hummed in every conquered citizen's bones. Earth was open. The gate stood wide, silent and waiting, like a door left ajar in a haunted house. People whispered in markets and barracks and quiet homes on 100 worlds. Some said it was a trap. Others said it was a miracle. Most just hoped it would close on its own, but it didn't. On the conquered capital world of Thesara, the High Council met in the Obsidian Chamber, a dome of black stone where no recording devices were allowed. 12 species sat around the circular table, their faces tense. At the head sat Elder Vosk, a tall being with skin like polished bark and eyes that had seen 3 galactic wars. He spoke slowly, each word weighed and measured. "We cannot ignore this," he said. The soul quarantine was not a suggestion. It was a promise to ourselves, to the dead. Admiral Lena Ruiz stood at the edge of the chamber, arms crossed. She wore her dress uniform, medals gleaming, but her expression was grim. She had argued for hours before the meeting even began. "We don't know what's on the other side," she said. "But we do know this. If we seal the gate blindly, we might trap something dangerous inside, or lock something out that shouldn't be. Or we let it stay open and invite the silence back," snapped Counselor Morel, a sharp-faced avian from the Cathari Collective. Earth didn't fall silent because of a plague or a war. It fell because it broke the rules of existence. We sealed it to protect the galaxy. Now one reckless linguist has undone centuries of caution. Lena didn't flinch. Then we send a team, small, quiet, just to look. Not to touch. Not to speak. Just to see if anything answers. The room fell silent. No one wanted to volunteer. No one wanted to be the first to step onto Earth in 500 years. Meanwhile, on Varel 9, Kyle sat in his cell. The walls were smooth metal, the air recycled and cold. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blue dot in the gate. He heard the hum, felt the warmth. Agent Derek Cole entered without knocking. He was human, mid-40s, with a shaved head and a scar across his left eyebrow. He carried no weapon, but his presence was heavy, like a storm about to break. He sat across from Kyle, placed a data pad on the floor between them. "You know why you're here," Derek said. His voice was calm but firm. "I opened a gate," Kyle replied. "Not a bomb. It might as well be." Derek tapped the pad. Footage played, grainy, shaky. Drones sent through the gate by conquered engineers. They showed overgrown streets, trees growing through skyscrapers, rivers running clean through what used to be cities. Then something moved, a figure tall and pale standing on a broken bridge. It turned its head just slightly as if it knew it was being watched. The feed cut out seconds later. Kyle leaned forward. "That's not a ghost." "No," Derek agreed. "It's worse. Ghosts don't watch back." They questioned him for hours. About the crystal, the sequence, the tone. Kyle told them everything. He even hummed the melody he'd reconstructed from the harmonic data. Derek recorded it. Played it back, then played it again, slower. "Where did you learn that?" Derek asked, frowning. "I didn't," Kyle said. "It just fit, like it was always in my head." Derek didn't answer. He left soon after, but not before muttering, "You have no idea what you've done." Back on Thesara, the council voted. By a narrow margin, they approved a recon mission. Lena would lead it. She chose her team carefully. Dr. Nina Patel, a xenobiologist who had studied dead worlds and strange life forms, would handle environmental scans. Corporal Eli Grant, a veteran with cybernetic legs and a steady hand, would provide security. And Kyle, against all advice, would come too. His knowledge of the gate's signal might be the only thing that kept them alive. 3 days later, they stood before the gate on Varel 9. The Concord had built a shielded platform around it, but the ring itself remained untouched. The blue dot still glowed within. Lena checked her suit seals. "Remember the rules. No direct contact. No sampling unless cleared. If anything feels wrong, we pull back. Understood? Nina nodded, adjusting her scanner pack. Eli tapped his rifle, eyes scanning the gate like it might bite. Kyle just stared into it, heart racing. They stepped through. The air on the other side was cool and clean. Birds sang in the distance. Sunlight filtered through tall trees that grew where highways once ran. The city around them, New Chicago according to Kyle's old maps, was swallowed by green. Vines climbed rusted cars. Flowers bloomed in cracked sidewalks. It was beautiful, and utterly empty. For a while, they set up base in a half-collapsed library. Stone walls still stood, shelves bent under the weight of wet paper. Nina ran her first scans. Oxygen levels normal, no toxins. Plant life shows minor genetic drift, but nothing hostile. Eli kept watch from the roof, rifle ready. Too quiet, he muttered over the comm. No animals, no insects, just wind and birds. Then at dusk, the whispers started. Not from one place, from everywhere. Soft voices in Old English, French, Mandarin. Languages not spoken in centuries. They spoke in fragments. Come home. Don't look. We remember you. Kyle froze. It's not a recording, he said. It's responding. Lena ordered a full retreat to the gate, but it was too late. The sky darkened unnaturally fast. Shadows stretched long and wrong. Time itself seemed to stutter. Eli swore he saw the same bird fly past 3 times in a row, each time slower than the last. That night, Eli vanished. They found his armor the next morning, folded neatly beside a stone bench. His rifle was gone. His comm unit lay on top, still on. The last thing it recorded was his voice, calm and distant. It's okay. I remember now. Beside the armor, carved into the stone, were words in shaky English. Welcome home. Nina's hands trembled as she scanned the carving. This wasn't done by a tool. The stone. It grew this. Lena stared at the message, then at the silent city. She finally understood. Earth wasn't dead. It was waiting. And it knew they were here. Back on Varel 9, Derek watched the live feed from the team's drones. He saw the folded armor. He heard the whispers. He pulled up Kyle's file again, then dug deeper, into classified ancestry records. What he found made his blood run cold. Every species in the Conquered, every one, had DNA markers that traced back to Earth. Not just humans. The Qatari, the Virulans, even the moss-like Sylph, all carried fragments of the same genetic code. Earth hadn't just been humanity's cradle. It was the seed of everything, and now, the seed was calling its children home. Derek closed the file. He looked at the gate on his screen, still open, still humming. He whispered the same words Kyle had said days before, but with far more dread. You open the gate to Earth, and for the first time in centuries, someone on the other side was listening. Part 3. The air in the ruined library felt heavier now. Every breath tasted of dust and something else, something old, like paper left in a sealed room for centuries. Lena stood by the broken window, watching the empty street. No wind moved the trees. No birds sang. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Nina paced near the stone bench where Eli's armor lay. She kept her scanner running, but the readings made no sense. The air pulsed with low-frequency energy. Gravity shifted in small pockets, sometimes lighter, sometimes heavier. Time didn't flow evenly. Her wrist chronometer jumped forward and backward without warning. Kyle sat on the floor, knees drawn to his chest. He hadn't spoken since they found Eli's gear. His eyes were distant, like he was listening to something the others couldn't hear. Every few minutes his lips moved silently, forming words no one else knew. We can't stay here, Lena said. Her voice was steady, but her hands clenched into fists. We lost Eli, we don't know how or why. But this place, it's not just watching us. It's learning us, Nina nodded. The biosphere is reacting to our presence. Plants near our footprints are changing color. The soil where we walked is warmer. It's like Earth is tasting us. Lena turned to Kyle. You heard the signal. You opened the gate. Do you understand any of this? Kyle looked up. His eyes were tired but clear. It's not hostile, he said softly. It's lonely, Nina frowned. Lonely? It just took a man. Not took, Kyle corrected. Called, Eli didn't fight. He walked away like he remembered something he'd forgotten. Lena didn't like that idea, but she couldn't deny what the footage showed. Eli had left willingly, calmly. as if he'd come home after a long trip. They packed what they could and moved out at dawn. The sky was pale gray, the sun hidden behind thick clouds that didn't move. They followed old subway tunnels, hoping to avoid open streets. The walls were covered in moss that glowed faintly when touched. Strange insects, translucent with too many legs, scuttled away from their boots, vanishing into cracks that shouldn't have been big enough. Halfway through the tunnel, Nina stopped. "Do you hear that?" A low hum filled the air. Not from the gate, from deeper underground. It matched the tone Kyle had played back on Varel 9, the harmonic sequence from the crystal. Kyle stepped forward. "It's coming from below. There's something down there." Lena hesitated. Going deeper felt wrong, but turning back meant facing the open city, where shadows moved when no one looked. She gave a short nod. "We go down, but slow. And quiet." They found a service hatch, rusted but unlocked. Below lay a staircase spiraling into darkness. The air grew colder as they descended. The hum grew louder, clearer. It wasn't just sound. It vibrated in their bones. At the bottom they entered a vast chamber. Smooth walls curved upward into a dome. In the center stood a console made of black stone, covered in symbols that shifted when stared at too long. Around it, rows of glass pods lined the walls, empty, cracked, covered in dust. Nina ran her scanner over the console. "This isn't Conquered tech. It's older. Pre-silence, human." Kyle approached the console. The symbols slowed when he got close. One by one, they settled into English letters. He read aloud, "Project Ascension. Final Archive." His fingers hovered over the surface. "It's a memory vault. The last thing they built before everything changed." Lena watched him. "What did they do?" Kyle's voice dropped. "They tried to save themselves. Not with ships or bunkers, with minds. They uploaded human consciousness into a planetary network, a living AI made of Earth itself. They thought they could become something new, immortal, unified." Nina's eyes widened. "And it worked?" "Partly," Kyle said. "But the upload wasn't clean. Minds fractured. Memories bled into the soil, the trees, the rivers. The planet didn't die. It dreamed. And in its dream it became something else, aware but not human. Not anymore." Lena finally understood. Earth wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was the ghost. A single broken mind wearing the skin of a world. Then the console lit up. Words formed on its surface, not in code but in plain English. "You are not alone." Kyle stepped back. "It knows we're here." The ground trembled. Not an earthquake, a pulse, like a heartbeat. The glass pods began to glow with soft blue light. Shadows moved along the walls, not cast by them but moving on their own. Nina grabbed Lena's arm. "We need to go now." They ran back up the stairs. The tunnel behind them groaned. Stone cracked. The hum rose to a scream. When they burst out onto the street, the sky was wrong. The clouds swirled in perfect circles. The sun was gone. In its place hung a pale blue eye, vast, glowing, watching. Lena activated her emergency beacon. "Varel 9, this is Ruiz. Extract now." "I repeat, extract now." Static crackled in her ear. Then Derek's voice, tight with fear. "We see it. The gate is destabilizing. We're pulling you back in 30 seconds. Don't be late." They sprinted toward the gate's location, boots pounding on cracked pavement. The city twisted around them. Buildings leaned inward. Streets looped back on themselves. Time stuttered. Lena saw herself running ahead, then behind, then gone. Nina tripped. A vine wrapped around her ankle, not rough but smooth like skin. She screamed. Kyle turned back, grabbed her arm, and pulled. The vine let go, but not before leaving a mark. A symbol burned into her boot. They reached the gate with seconds to spare. The ring shimmered unstable. Blue light flickered like a dying star. "Go," Lena shouted. Nina jumped through first. Kyle followed. Lena turned for one last look. The city was gone. In its place stood a field of white flowers under a black sky. And in the distance a figure, tall, pale, with glowing eyes, raised a hand in farewell. She leaped through. On Varel 9 they collapsed on the platform, gasping. The gate snapped shut behind them with a sound like a sigh. Alarms blared. Medics rushed forward. Derek stood nearby, face pale. "What happened?" he asked. Lena stood, brushing dust off her uniform. "We found the truth. Earth didn't kill itself. It tried to become more than human. And it succeeded." Derek looked at the now closed gate. "Then why did it let you leave?" Kyle answered, voice hollow. because it didn't need to keep us. It already knows where we live. Back on Thesara, the High Council watched the mission footage in stunned silence. Elder Vosk stood slowly. The silence was never a warning. It was a lullaby. And now it's over. Lena looked at her hands. They trembled. Not from fear. From memory. She'd never been to Earth. But standing there, she'd felt like she'd come home, and that scared her more than anything. Because if Earth remembered them, it might come looking. Part 4. The gate stayed closed, but the silence did not return. Across the Concord, people began to dream. Not ordinary dreams. They dreamed of oceans they'd never seen, of cities built of light, of voices singing in languages they didn't know but understood perfectly. Some woke up crying. Others woke up smiling as if they'd just remembered. A long-lost friend. The dreams spread like a quiet tide, touching every species, every world, every child. On Varel 9, Kyle couldn't sleep at all. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the blue eye in the sky. He heard the hum, and beneath it, a single question repeated over and over. Do you remember? He didn't, not really, but parts of him did. Smell of rain on hot pavement, the taste of something sweet and sour, a lullaby his mother never sang. These weren't memories. They were echoes, and they were getting louder. Lena called an emergency meeting with Derek and Nina. They gathered in a secure room deep inside the Concord outpost. No windows, no recordings, just 4 chairs and a table. We can't ignore this, Lena said. The dreams are real. They're not random. They're tied to Earth's signal. Nina nodded. She'd been studying the mark on her boot, the symbol left by the vine. It's not just a symbol. It's a genetic key. When it touched me, it read my DNA, and it recognized it. Derek leaned forward. I ran deeper ancestry scans after your mission. Every conquered species, every single one, has markers that trace back to Earth, not just humans. The Cathari, the Moss people of Silth Prime, even the gas dwellers of Helios 7. All of them carry fragments of the same genome. Lena's face went still. So Earth didn't just give birth to humanity. It seeded the whole galaxy. Exactly, Derek said. The old stories were true. Before the silence, humans sent out ships not just to colonize but to spread life. They used gene tailoring, terraforming, memory imprints. They made sure their children would survive even if they forgot where they came from. Kyle spoke for the first time. That's why the gate opened for me. It didn't see a stranger. It saw family. The room fell quiet. The truth settled over them like dust. Lena stood and walked to the wall screen. She pulled up star charts, ancient logs, forbidden files. The Conquered didn't quarantine Earth to protect us from a threat. They sealed it to protect us from the truth. If we remembered Earth, we might remember what we gave up to become civilized. Unity, connection, oneness. Nina shivered. And now Earth is waking up, and it's calling its children home. Derek rubbed his temples. If we don't act, the dreams will get stronger. People will start walking toward the nearest gate just like Eli did. Whole cities could empty themselves into nothing. Lena turned. Then we don't fight it. We answer it. They looked at her like she was mad. Hear me out, she said. Earth isn't trying to destroy us. It's lonely. It's been dreaming alone for 500 years. It reached out and Kyle answered. Now it knows we're still here, but it doesn't understand that we've changed. That we're scared, Kyle nodded slowly. It thinks we're coming back to join it. Like we promised. So we send a message, Lena said. Not a weapon. Not a shield. A song. Nina's eyes lit up. The lullaby. The one from the original human genome. It's coded into every conquered species, buried deep in non-coding DNA. If we broadcast it through the gate frequency, it might calm the planetary mind. Not shut it down, just soothe it. Derek hesitated. If we open the gate again, even for a signal, we risk another breach. We already breached it, Lena said. Now we have to mend it. They worked through the night. Kyle helped reconstruct the lullaby from fragments in old nursery databases and genetic archives. Nina tuned the broadcast array to match Earth's harmonic frequency. Derek cleared Concord channels, overriding every security protocol. At dawn, they stood before the gate chamber again. The ring was dark, but the air around it hummed with tension like a held breath. Lena gave the order. Send it. The lullaby played, not through speakers but through the gate's quantum field. Soft, wordless, ancient, a mother's voice from the beginning of time. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the gate flickered. Not open, not closed, just breathing. Blue light pulsed gently in time with the song. On earth, the white flowers bowed. The blue eye in the sky softened. The whispers faded into a sigh. In the dreams across the galaxy, the voices changed. No longer asking, "Do you remember?" but whispering, "It's okay. Rest now." The gate stabilized. It didn't close completely. A thin thread of connection remained, like a heartbeat shared between two worlds. Back in the chamber, Kyle sank to his knees. Tears ran down his face. "It hurt us." Lena placed a hand on his shoulder. "And it listened." Derek watched the gate, his usual stern expression gone. "We spent centuries running from our origin. Now we have to learn how to live with it." The Concord High Council met again. This time there was no shouting, no blame. Elder Vosk stood and spoke one sentence. "Earth is not a tomb. It is a memory, and memory must be honored, not feared." They voted to lift the quarantine, but not to colonize, not to study. Earth would be declared a sacred site. No ships allowed, no drones. Only silence and respect. Kyle was pardoned. Not just freed, but given a new role. Earth's first ambassador. Not to speak for it, just to listen. Lena returned to Thesara, but she couldn't sleep without dreaming of green hills and quiet rivers. She didn't fight it anymore. She let the dreams come. And in them she finally understood why her ancestors left Earth. Not because they wanted to escape, but because they hoped to grow, and one day return wiser. But Earth had been waiting. And now it knew they hadn't forgotten. The gate remained open, just a little, not as a door, but as a promise. And somewhere beneath the soil of a silent world, the planetary mind settled into a lighter sleep, no longer alone, because its children had finally come home, not in body, but in memory, and that was enough. Part 5. Time passed, not in days or weeks, but in breaths. The gate stayed open, but no one walked through it again. Not yet. The Concord built a quiet station around it, not for science, but for watching, for listening. Kyle lived there now in a small room with a window that faced the ring. He didn't wear a uniform. He wore simple clothes, like someone waiting for a guest who might never come. Every morning he played the lullaby. Not loud, just a whisper through the gate. And every morning, Earth answered. Not with words, but with a shift in the light, a change in the wind that somehow reached across space. The dreams across the galaxy grew gentler. Children woke up humming tunes they'd never heard. Old soldiers cried for reasons they couldn't explain. Something deep inside them remembered. Lena visited once a month. She came not as an admiral, but as a friend. They sat in silence most of the time, watching the gate. Sometimes she brought tea. Sometimes she brought news from Thesara. The Concord was changing. Laws were rewritten. Schools taught the old Earth stories, not as myths, but as history. People began to plant gardens with seeds traced back to Sol System. They called them memory flowers. One evening, as the station lights dimmed for night cycle, Lena asked the question she'd been holding for weeks. "Do you think it will ever speak clearly? Not in dreams or symbols, but in words we understand?" Kyle looked at the gate. The blue dot inside it shimmered softly. "It already has. We just weren't ready to hear it." He told her about the whispers he still heard, not in his ears but in his bones. They weren't asking for anything. They were sharing. Memories of sunsets over oceans, laughter in crowded streets, the smell of bread baking in old kitchens. Earth wasn't trying to take them back. It was offering them a piece of what it still held. Lena understood then. Earth wasn't a ghost. It was a library, a living archive of everything humanity once was, and everything it could have been. Down on Thesara, Derek worked quietly. He'd resigned from intelligence. Now he helped families trace their Earth roots. He found that nearly every Concord citizen, no matter their species, had a fragment of human memory buried in their genes. Some carried the rhythm of a forgotten dance. Others held the shape of a lost word on their tongues. He called it the echo, and he believed it was a gift, not a curse. The High Council made a new rule. Once a year, on the anniversary of the gate's opening, every world in the Concord would fall silent for 1 hour. No ships would fly. No messages would send. Just stillness. A moment to remember where they all began. That first silence hour, Kyle stood before the gate alone. He closed his eyes and listened. And for the first time, he didn't hear loneliness. He heard peace, but peace doesn't last forever. One night, the gate pulsed brighter than usual. Not with alarm, with warmth. Kyle felt it in his chest, a pull, gentle but sure. He knew what it meant. Earth wasn't calling everyone. Just him. He didn't tell anyone. He packed a small bag, water, a blanket, a recorder. No weapons, no tools. Just himself. Lena found him at the gate platform the next morning. She didn't try to stop him. She just handed him a small locket. Inside was a picture of Earth from space taken centuries ago. "So you don't forget what it looked like before the dreams," she said. Kyle smiled. "I won't forget. I'm going home." He stepped through. The air on Earth was the same, clean, cool, full of life. The city was still overgrown, but now it felt welcoming. Flowers bloomed along his path. Birds followed him in silence. He walked for days, not tired, not hungry. The land fed him in ways he couldn't explain. He reached the ruins of Geneva. The archive chamber waited, open like an old friend's door. Inside, the console glowed softly. Words formed on its surface. "You came back." Kyle placed his hand on it. "I never really left." Memories flooded him. Not his own, but Earth's. Millions of lives. Billions of moments, joy, pain, love, loss, he said. On the day the upload began, he felt the fear, the hope, the terrible beauty of becoming something new, and he understood why it had waited so long. It needed someone who remembered how to be human, not perfect. Not pure, just human. Kyle sat on the floor of the chamber. He didn't speak. He just was. And in that stillness, Earth wrapped around him like a blanket. His mind didn't dissolve. It joined, not lost, not erased. Added back on Varel 9, the gate dimmed. The blue dot faded to a soft glow. Lena watched from the platform. She knew he wasn't coming back. But she also knew he wasn't gone. Months later, a new signal came through. Not a voice, not a song, but a feeling. A sense of calm, of completion. The dreams across the galaxy changed one last time. No longer searching, just remembering with love. The Concorde kept the gate open. Not as a warning. Not as a threat. But as a bridge in the tally of the dead, it didn't stop. It changed. Names were no longer added in sorrow, but in reunion. Each one a thread woven back into the great tapestry of what once was and what still is. Lena stood on the observation deck of a quiet ship, orbiting far from any world. She looked at Earth through a view screen. It shone blue and green, alive and whole. A soft chime echoed in her mind, a whisper in a language she never learned but somehow understood. "You opened the gate to Earth." She closed her eyes and answered, not with words but with memory. And somewhere deep in the soil of a silent world, the tally added one more name, not in mourning, but in reunion.